Now 250,000. Now, but to get 275. 5, but to get 275. 3. Now 300,000. Now 3 1/4. 325. 5, but to get 3 1/4. But to get 325. Now half. Now but to get 300. And hello, once again from Lincoln Center in Dallas, Texas, at the intersection of the LBJ Freeway and North Dallas Tollway. And we're glad to have you on. Today, our special guest is Mark Woodling. He's the Vice President of United Strategic Client Services, SCS. And happy birthday, Mark.
Thank you for allowing me to be here again. I feel like I've been on a number of times, and it just keeps getting better, like my age, only getting better.
Who doesn't want to be 40?
Yeah. 40 is pretty cool. I'm about 3 hours in since I woke up, so I have no idea what my 40s are like yet. Just getting the day started.
Well, that's okay. Well, believe me, I would rather have your 40 than what I have right now.
And yours is right around the corner, so
we don't want to talk about that.
Put the spotlight right on you.
Well, one of the things we're going to talk about today is kind of a look back over 2018, because the last time we did this, we were in 2018, and we were getting ready to sell some properties in across the United States. I think maybe Utah, and you were working on some other things. And we had a high fence ranch coming up in Minnesota, and which we're working on, and we're going to talk about all that. But I think as much as anything, we want to talk about 2018. Kind of what the market was in 2018, what we're kind of looking at right now for 2019, what the forecast financially is going to be, potential interest rate changes, as well as a shift in the wind. And we're going into another political season, and we're getting all the new candidates popping up. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. The Democrats have really jumped on the bandwagon, and they've got like 19 candidates, I think, today or something. Somebody else announced this morning. Meanwhile, there's things going on with Trump and North Korea, and then all the hearings that are going on. So there's a lot of political undertones of what's going on in the country right now. And that always affects everything. It affects every economic area of our society, whether it's selling cars or selling real estate. So that's kind of what's going on. So what's going on? Tell me what's going on in your world.
Well, just talking about, whether it's politics or it's just the way the market's shifting right now, I think the number one thing that people are looking at is, let's buy before things really change, and usually it's about interest rates, affordability, and it really comes down to consumer confidence. People want to know that where we're going as a country or where their local real estate market is heading, jobs are there and things that really create that affordability and the ability to buy. And, right now is just such a weird time in the world where, there's not enough home building going on. But interest rates are super low still, even though they've creeped back up. Lots of turmoil in terms of trade and where the markets are going as a global market. So you kind of look at all those factors together, and I think I just have a huge question mark over my head of what is going to happen. You really can't predict it, but I think people are trying to take advantage of those lower interest rates, which is good. But what the headwinds are ahead, you really do not know what's going to happen. So you kind of have to live day to day and, wait for something big to happen. But, if people are looking for a home, typically they're going to buy. If it's a secondary home, they're going to hold back a little bit. So you just noticed over the last 3 years, especially since the last election, people were not overbuying. They're not overspending on some of the luxury or what we call ultra luxury real estate, $4 million plus. So it really has thrown a wrench into some of these higher end, more unique properties because they will sit on the market for longer. So doing the right marketing, doing the things that we do and just kind of creating that demand, it's more important than ever for those higher end properties because people are just, they're not willing to open that pocketbook like they used to, knowing that there's so much uncertainty going on today.
Yeah, and the specialty properties too, which we do get a lot of. In 2018, we had a good year in 2018, and let's talk about a couple of the major projects we did in 2018. And just pick something that is worthy of discussion. I mean, of course, the 120 properties in Utah. You were the lead guy on that. I called the auction, but that was your managed project. That was a major project for United SCS. Very successful event. And anytime you sell 120 properties in one town, and what was the population of Duchesne?
Oh boy, I can't call it off the top of my head, but it's under 5,000.
I started to say, I mean, just imagine, if you will. It sounds like the beginning of a movie soundtrack or something. You're like, imagine, if you will, a place in Utah. Yeah, I mean, to sell 120 properties in a town of less than 5,000 in one day is phenomenal. It's phenomenal, but that's what an auction can do. Marketing. You ran a great marketing campaign with our enhanced marketing services. You worked with Amanda Seiler and her team, and you worked with a PR firm. You had a PR firm involved. So the combination of all that and getting the attention in Salt Lake City was pivotal to the success of that. And then I mean, hats off to you, in my opinion, because that you managed that along with our good friend out in Colorado. So Gary Hubble, who is our broker of record on that project, and also a great United Country office. His son Jake was involved in that project, and then I think probably a couple more people that work with him. Has to be something to stand on the hill and yell about, because we sold development lots, we sold houses, we sold cabins, we sold motels, and we sold some retail. And so tell me your take on that.
Well, I've actually been looking back at this quite a bit because Gary Hubble and I will spend time on the phone together and just kind of just thinking about what worked well, but what really was important to get that project off the ground and do it so we didn't have the bumps along the way. And that's what usually happens with some of these projects, that you get moving so fast and then you forget about that personal touch or some of the things that you want to do, you just don't have the time to pull it off. But going back, this project was basically brought through the United Country door about a year and a half ago, or a year and a half before the sale. So it took a year and a half of getting to know the seller. And she was just in such a tough position because she had lost her husband a few years before, and then they shut down their business. They were not doing any sales. They were a real estate sales company selling off over 5,000 acres, 5 acres at a time, or 10 acres at a time. And so when they hit this stalled moment, that's what was really going on, is that she had lost confidence that she couldn't do it herself. Yeah. But she knew what it took to do it, but she needed the right people to come in. So she had hired a company out of Park City, Utah, and they tried to sell it the easy way, as one block, one portfolio of properties, and they had valued at $7 million. Well, that didn't work because who can afford $7 million in the middle of Duchesne, right? So that was the big issue, was trying to create the demand, but it really is a unicorn that you're trying to find, that one special party that really could take down the whole thing. But going back to it, what worked was that we took the time to get to know Joan. And she is a very interesting character. She is very religious, very politically driven, and just has this great spirit to her. But you had to really get to know that spirit before you could help her out, because it was very much like being a psychologist, where you had to get into her head and understand where she truly was as a person. Sure. Before she could open up this trust and then really trust us to sell 120 properties and do it in a way that was on a short timeline, where she wasn't pulling on us and distracting us or changing her mind about decisions to go through with the auction. So it was really a matter of becoming her friend and really getting personal and having that relationship. And then everything was smooth after that, because she knew that she could trust us, and trust to her was the biggest thing that she could have ever wanted, because her husband, who had passed, he was really the driver. He was the one that vetted and qualified the parties that they would work with, and that wasn't her forte necessarily. Right. So building that up, and that made everything a success shortly after.
So, and you also have to look at the demographic of who you're dealing with. So she was married, yes. Her husband passed away, yes. But where he was from and where she was from, a lot of times you're dealing, now in her case, I believe she was from New Orleans, isn't that right? So let me tell you, the people who live in New Orleans, and I was just in New Orleans last week, as you know, and I've done a lot of things in New Orleans. I've worked a lot in New Orleans. It's a different culture. Their mindset's different. Their trust factors are somewhat different. And so, and here they are in Utah. Well, she's not, and no offense to any religious group, but she wasn't Mormon. She was from New Orleans. And so she was, I believe she was probably Catholic and religious. And, I do remember talking to her quite a few times about different things. But she was very political. And they loved being in the middle of the storm, I can tell you. And so anyway, this is the brochure from that one. I just want to pop that up on the screen if you haven't seen it. That just shows you kind of some of the collateral material. Also, because we're going to roll through these pretty quick, this is a property that you and I did over in Bossier City, Shreveport area. That was the Red River South Marina and Travel Center. That was a successful auction. That involved everything from working with Bassmasters to actually doing auctions with some associations for outdoor advertising groups. I mean, we really pushed hard. Plus, we networked with a lot of business brokerage firms we have some relationships with. Any quick comment about that auction?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to the seller relationship. The seller on that property was a very interesting businessman, also from Louisiana, and he and Mike hit it off. He would not listen to anyone but Mike, and he had a tough time dealing with anyone else because they would just kowtow to every need of his, and he wasn't used to working with somebody that had a dominant personality, because that would be like having two beta fish in the same fishbowl. But he listened to you because your experience, your demeanor that was patient. And it let him air his issues, which he would just kind of bark for a while, and then we would hear him out. And then we would give him a response and move on. And it was just a matter of making sure he was heard. So dealing with different sellers, they all, in the end, come down to it. I think they're very demanding for this price point that we're selling. Anything $2+ million. These people are invested in their projects, and they want results. So they're going to push you along the way and make sure they're getting the best of us as well.
Sure. Zach, I want to show them another brochure. I want you to tell me about this mountain retreat property that was in Colorado.
Sure. So Gary Hubble, who we worked with on the Utah project, was at the RLI Institute, which is the Realtors Land Institute convention, just after the United Country convention in Nashville last year. So Gary was sitting there and talking about some other projects he's working on in the Colorado area, and a broker who owns the largest land brokerage in the state of Florida, he approached Gary and said, I haven't been able to sell this property. I've taken 10 years of putting it on the market. I've never even lived in the property. We've only stayed in the guest house. I need your help, and I think an auction would be the way to go. So another broker approached us, asked us for help, and we put together about a $55,000 marketing plan just outside Telluride, focusing on anybody that loves Telluride skiing or has a plane that flies in directly. And it was about a $12 million build project. Unfortunately, that's when the market crashed. It was, they had spent $12 million back in 2007, and he knew he just needed to get anything he could for it. So we brought it to auction, and we got him the price that the market dictated, which was right about $4 million. Right. But it's because it was not in Telluride, and that was really what hurt the property.
Everything has a reason why. It's either, it can be overbuilt, it could be location, it could be accessibility. Everything has a factor. There's a reason why something is slow to move, and I'm not going to call them albatrosses, but in some cases they are. They're just unique properties that are hard to move, and a lot of times it's price point. It's just price point. I want you to tell me about this particular manufacturing and distribution plant that you were involved in?
Sure. That was back in 2017. We got that sold, or actually end of 2016. But that was the former Kellogg's food manufacturing and distribution facility. I believe it was right around 700,000 square feet, built in the 50s. It's where they used to make Teddy Graham crackers and Cheez-Its. So people think about, gosh, that's been a while since they were marketing or making those products. Well, they still made them, and until about 10 years ago, they were making them there. Anyways, it was vacated by Kellogg's and sold off, and the company that bought it for about $1 million.
Yep.
They scrapped all the metal, made $1 million back, and then sold everything for a profit. So these types of investors, they come across unique properties like this, but because of the year it was built back in the 50s, it had very low ceilings because they didn't have the pitchforks like they do now,
right.
Or forklifts, excuse me, pitchforks, forklifts that they do now that could go up 2 stories.
Yep.
So, the functional obsolescence of it was so great that people just didn't want it. But we found a buyer and sold it pre-auction for about $2.4 million and got the deal done. So, deals like this, they are very unique. They become outdated very quickly, and you just got to step in and find that market. But you got to get very strategic and pinpoint that one type of food buyer that's out there and still manufacturing and can find a use for it.
And we did.
That's right.
And we did it through a joint venture with Colliers.
That's right.
And we do work with Colliers and other national and international commercial brokerage firms. So anybody out there that happens to be hearing our voice, if you're with Colliers or with one of the other top 3 or top 4 firms or an independent, give us a call because we'll work with you as well. I want to talk about these really quick, and then I want you to tell them about the deal. You and I went to Atlanta last week, and we've got a project going on. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is the property in Colorado.
Sure. So that's a Ducks Unlimited group that had bought the property together and formed a little hunting club, and they thought that was about the hardest thing in the world to own and manage together because everybody, they were in different places in life. Somebody wanted it, somebody didn't want it. There was just a different group of people that said, all right, in the end, the only way we can resolve this is by selling it.
Let's have an auction.
So we auctioned it, got Ducks Unlimited involved from a marketing perspective, which we have a strategic alliance with them. And we reached out to the top 3% donor base of the Ducks Unlimited group and brought some very interested parties and ended up getting it sold at auction. So, it took more than a local marketing perspective.
Our strategic relationship with Ducks Unlimited is extremely important to our company, and also it is something that we're very interested in. Waterfowl management and also the wetlands across the United States and Canada, that is a focus of what we do. And so I just got back from New York City. We just had the New York City, the New York Wall Street event with Ducks Unlimited. We have the national convention coming up in Hawaii, and then we also have the Washington, D.C. event with the congressional members and the senators. So these are all places where we can connect with people with money and people that will be able to buy these types of properties. And it's a serious group of people. Speaking of which, we have this property right here for sale. And this is the Autumn Antlers Trophy Whitetail Lodge. The weather got in the way of this auction, and also we had some buyers that we needed to give some extended time. So we have an open auction going on right now. This is in Brainerd, Minnesota, outside of Brainerd. This is probably the build out on this thing is probably $8 to $10 million. Anyone that's interested in that property should give us a call. We are doing an open auction right now. They can go to United SCS. They can actually contact me directly. Mike at United-SCS. You can get a hold of me, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that property. You want to mention that property outside of Atlanta real quick?
Sure. So Mike and I just paid a quick visit out to Hawkinsville, Georgia, just 2 hours south of Atlanta. And we're going to be selling a wedding venue that is one of the upscale barn kind of farm wedding venues. And it's really what's trending right now in the wedding industry. I got married a little over a year ago, saw that and said, hey, this is something that we could definitely put our heads together on and sell, because it's not only a single family home, but it has the income opportunities through hosting weddings, and you can actually sleep up to 29 people there. And that's very unusual for most wedding venues. They'll allow you to come in and they kick you out by about midnight. Here, that's when the party gets started, right around midnight. But as we toured through it, we really saw the efforts that went in, especially from an architectural perspective.
And historical.
In historical perspective, that the sellers restored some of these homes. There's actually an old militia courthouse that was one of 6 in Hawkinsville back from the mid-1800s. But you see this upscale barn that just has all of the details that you would want from a wedding perspective that could fit up to 400 people. But whether you look at the old pecan tree, that's one of the largest in the state. Zach, if you go to the very far right and click on that picture, you can actually see there's a nice perspective of the property.
It's historic. It's a very historic property going way back into the 1800s.
Yeah, but you have like 4 different places you can get married there on site.
Gorgeous.
Tons of fun. They have all this internet and TVs hooked up, so you can have games going on Saturday afternoons. So the guys are all taken care of, and
there's the tree.
Yeah, there's the pecan tree.
It's one of the highest points in the county.
Yeah,
and professional athletes get married there. Lots of people come from Atlanta, and they've had people from Indonesia or India. Just a lot of countries. I mean,
that's right.
Phenomenal.
But this is what's trending, and somebody can live here, be there full time, and supplement, their monthly payments, where they have a mortgage or they're even getting an SBA loan to operate the business. But the place is just meticulous. The sellers are very, very proud of this, but they're ready to retire. So they're letting go, and they wanted to choose an auction as the method of selling the property and the business. So it'll come with all the websites, all the reviews, all the collateral, policies, procedures. And pretty much a newbie can walk in and say, I can start this wedding business from scratch and have a whole book of business ahead of them to run.
They can go to info@United-SCS.com if they're interested in this property.
Yep, or GeorgiaFarmAuction.com.
GeorgiaFarmAuction.com.
Correct.
And learn everything they ever wanted to know about Twin Oaks Farms, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, Mark, I think that wraps us up. Happy birthday to you, my friend.
Hey, thank you.
And I know things are only going to get bigger and better for you.
That's right.
And we appreciate you being on. On behalf of everybody that's been a part of this one here at Lincoln Center, this is Mike Jones, Mike McGavel Jones Show, signing off for this week, and we'll talk to you next time. Until then, we bid you adieu from Dallas.